So I'm here to present on behalf of the IKC3 project. So we did, I suppose, learning from previous presentations that have gone ahead. I think these workshops were very inclusive, and I think we can definitely develop them now from the previous presentations that we've been listening to. So please feel free to ask questions or whatever you like when we go through it. So so I suppose I'm a lecturer with the IKC3 project based in Munster Technological University. So we are based in Ireland, not in Munster in Germany. We are based in Munster in Ireland. I don't know, does anyone know the rugby team? But we're usually fairly good. So that's us there now in the south of the country. So I suppose just to explain a little bit about IKC3. So it's a funded project by the Higher Education Authority to basically facilitate and co-create programs in sustainability, with bioeconomy being a really big focus with the program. So it's a multi-cooperative type funded project. So we have Munster Technological University, Trinity College Dublin, and University College Dublin as well. So I suppose the name then, Ireland's Knowledge Centre for Carbon, Climate and Community. Action is a collaboration between the three, but I suppose it's really trying to create a community focus. So we all know that being sustainable is great, but it's a very hard journey to do on your own. To make great change, we need to incorporate a community aspect. So that's where we got the community, and in terms of who we're working with are very much existing students, industry members and community groups that have a common interest to make a climate change or a more sustainable change, or have an interest in some sort of carbon element. However, we're not, there was a presentation earlier and mentioning carbon siloing, that we're not, I suppose, focused on that, but I suppose it's just a common word at the moment that is spread across the term sustainability. So I suppose we're a consortium, and we have a lot of different industry members. We work with Climate Kick, we work with Sustainable Innovation Spain, European HEIs, companies, enterprise clusters, local government, civic and social innovators. We do an awful lot with SME groups, and we're trying to do an awful lot of work on entrepreneurial mindset as well. So I suppose these are the people that are involved. Dr. Helena McMahon is the director of the project. She's based below in Munster Technological University. Professor Nick Holden, UCD. Quentin Crowley is a co-lead then in Trinity. Myself and Eve Savage I'm lecturing, and Eve Savage was a project manager. She was very much involved in these climate smart sprints. So these are just a few of the industries that we collaborate across the board, that we have an awful lot of interest with and contacts with, and who are also incorporated into the project. So anytime that, I suppose we have a constant ready list for any type workshop or involvement that we have for any one event, and we make very much contact with these, and they pull on us and we pull on them, so it's great. So I suppose the three main pillars or workshops of the actual project: lifelong learning, enterprise skills, talent for transition to low carbon economy. So we have existing programs in bioeconomy with business, we have a certificate in circular economy, and we hope to develop these programs for all type learners. They're blended courses, so they're both online, and we have a workshop instilled into them, and very much directed. They're 90% funded by Springboard funding, and very much directed to people in working type scenarios, looking to upskill and educate themselves for a current career demographic. So then we have the Tourist Learning Programme, so graduate formation and workplace of the future. So I don't know what many of you heard, this programme was run by Climate Kick in previous years, and basically it's an educational type programme for all type of international type learners to instill, I suppose, a thinking of sustainability, but also, I suppose, a deeper type of worldly thinking of using systems thinking as a method to move forward in a more sustainable context. You know, we just had our first webinar on this, and we hope to have, we're having a summer school then in Tralee. We bring them all down to Kerry and show them the brilliance and the sustainable aspects that are there. Then we have deep learning demonstrations, so regional experimental learning environments. So this is very much a new type of methodology that we're trying to work with. Climate Kick did some deep dive demonstrations with the agri-food industry there last year to try and, I suppose, create a concept of what does the agri-food industry members or employment actually consider sustainable. And in Ireland, I suppose, when we think agri-food, we think cows, we think grass, we think beef, we think milk. There's very little in between after that. So I think, you know, they did a lot of research in types of diversifying farming. So we're hoping to maybe use this type of methodology to create something different to the typical type lecturing content, or, you know, that to teach sustainable programs going forward. So then I suppose the climate smart innovation sprints, so these were brought into, we had a climate-on. So basically we had a function, and we invited industry members, we invited local community groups, and we invited people to try and get engaged and try and thinking of purposes, or thinking of how can we move forward as a group or as a local community to try and create difference in terms of climate challenges that are facing us. So it was opportunities to collaborate, it was positive and peer-to-peer learning experience, and very much for industry and a strategizing type environment. So then I suppose we used a design thinking methodology for this. So I suppose I'm not in education, I'm only in academia. I suppose the past 2 years as a lecturer, or 3 years previous to that I was in research, but design thinking, I think it is quite still a new terminology to a lot of people. Typically when we're coming from more a lecture type content or a stand-up and presentation type content, but you know, we use this design thinking for problem solving, for understanding, empathizing with customers, users and societies, and we basically to redefine problems and basically take some of the complexity out of these problems. And I suppose we tried to give the students or give the learners a methodology rather than a solution. So you teach a person how to fish, you know, they can feed themselves for life. If you fish for them, they can't feed themselves. So I suppose that's where the concept was coming from in the workshop. Through this, we generated a step-by-step process. We identified the problem, defined the challenge. Then within these actions, we created, I suppose, an idealization, so designer dozen. So if they had a challenge, or, you know, I like to call challenges opportunities as well, but if they had a specific problem or item that they have defined as a challenge, what would be the 9 ideals or 12 ideals that they could, the 12 ideas that they could do without anything coming down on top of them, without any legislation, without any negatives, without anything to hamper their idea. So if they were able to go to the moon and back, what would be the best way to do that? Then we used the 9 R's. So if we incorporated a reuse, recycle, reduce type of methodology within that designer dozen, how would that develop the idea? We thought of the big tree, the bigger picture. Basically, how do we create a more holistic type model? How do we think of, you know, systems thinking type of engagement with them? Expanding on your chosen ideas. I suppose, what community groups do you need to get involved for this to actually go forward? So if I've defined the challenge, who are the action groups that I need to discuss with or talk with to actually make this a probable plan? And within those couple of steps, you have an action plan made up already. We did this then, we did this on Canvas, and an impact pitch presentation then was given at the end. So it's a very much collaborative type scenario. So I'll show you the parts we use, but within that we did an awful lot of trust building exercises. So to try and create a really good positive group type setting, we used a yes and approach. So basically you turn to your neighbour and they can cry and give out for a full minute. and all the other person can do is say yes and. You can't disagree, you can't interrupt, all you can do is say yes and. And you'd be very much surprised in terms of how much that can build trust between people, you know, going forward, because I suppose a very debilitating part is, people mentioned there, is that, you know, you get corrected or you get stunted a bit, or you get told that's not in the correct format, you know, your voice shouldn't be heard. And, you know, maybe that's not the intention, but it can be very debilitating, whereas simple exercises like the yes and, it doesn't take very long, but it's really good for creating good group networking and positive environment. So then I suppose what did, you know, just some feedback then that we got from the learners that participated in it was that it was work actively and collaborated with practical, meaningful solutions and coherence. And I suppose they started thinking about systems thinking without or practicing systems thinking without actually realizing what it was. Transferable skills, personal development, leadership, promoting action, orientation and solutions, very much a communications type exercise as well. And then achieve personal development, strengthening your communication skills, and then solving complex societal challenges related to climate change. So I suppose they're all there for one purpose, but by using a group type of knowledge scenario, they're able to build and move forward, you know, working with all the different knowledges within the table. So I suppose the challenge that we brought forward was how do we halve emissions by 2030 and get to net zero by 2050? Very much bioeconomy type of scenario, I suppose. But you know, if we brought bioeconomy, if we brought the word bioeconomy, I'm not sure would we have the same clientele that are there. We all know net zero, we all know 2030, we all know the we know this slogan. So I think that's really what brought it together. So then we used it didn't come up now, but we used a type Miro board. So we broke all those steps into different boxes and into different categories. So when the groups got together, that they were able to write down and communicate and discuss and really engage with each other. And from that then we created, these are just a couple of posters, but you can see on the titles there, the Circular Economy Hub Southwest was created. The Sustainable Food Systems was created. So these case studies then were built from these workshops. So we produced these, and you know, I repeated this workshop then for my own bioeconomy graduate students, or not graduates, they're currently doing the program. But even as, you know, to produce this case study, and then they were able to produce that as part of their assessment, but it got their brains thinking in terms of how is this, and I suppose a lot of these processes are probably very much, you know, every day to a lot of people here, but we have to remember, I suppose, to a certain degree when we're teaching learners, it's a first. A lot of these things are a first for them as well. So I suppose then just some feedback. So we had a nice group set, so that's my class there, and they presented their posters then afterwards, and the best, we had biofertilizers, we had alternative protein sourcing, and we had knowledge transfer, some of the case studies that we had for this, and then we even had some people participating online, and it was on St. Patrick's weekend, so for the best presentation, or we nominated a winner then amongst us all, we gave them a little bit of shamrock then as well to keep everyone going. So yeah, so very much thanks very much now for listening to me, and I'm happy to take any questions as we go.
Thank you.